All right, Onnit podcast. We're with a man who needs no introduction, but I'll happily introduce our founder and CEO of Onnit, Aubrey Marcus.
What's up, brother?
What's up, my man?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing phenomenal.
Good.
Been excited for this one.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about your new book, Own the Day, Own Your Life. And we got a lot to talk about here. And
yeah, I put a lot in that.
Yeah,
fucking thing.
there's I think I've read it three or four times already.
Yeah.
And it's fucking jam-packed.
Yeah.
But let's break down real quick what the big picture of this book is, because that's kind of what, in my opinion and yours, what sets it apart from a lot of the other books out there on how to get right.
It's the same thing that sets you and I apart, and same thing that sets Ben Greenfield apart, and a lot of the people who really walk the walk. It's that not that they focus on one thing or one thing at a time. It's focusing on everything, because we all parts of the body, all parts of the mind, psyche, spirit, skin, organs, bones, muscles, skeleton, everything works together ultimately in unison. And every time you try to focus on one particular part and just put all of your efforts on that, then the other stuff starts to go out of balance, or you lose track of some of those other things. So to really make improvement, you got to level everything up at once. But that's a hugely daunting task. So how do you make that bite size? How do you make total human optimization something that's manageable? Well, make it one day, like one day of human optimization everybody can do, as long as they have a really clear plan and it's not crazy expensive. And that's what we wanted to accomplish with this book. Just be like, look, don't worry about your life. Like, own your day and you'll own your life. You know what I mean? Like, just focus on that. And not only that, fuck a day. Like, let's just go hour by hour. Let's go prescription by prescription. Let's go step by step. And then pretty quickly you'll get a full idea what total human optimization looks like.
Yeah, little by little, as you tackle things from the morning routine onward, all the way to how you finish the day off, everything falls in unison. And then you look back on that perfect day, and it truly was the most optimized way to live. Yeah. You feel better on all fronts.
No one thing is like that hard. It's just getting organized and just doing, okay, I got one thing to do. What do I got to do? Okay, I got to wake up and I got to take my hydration drink. All right, little sea salt, little water, little lemon. Is that hard? Nope, not hard. You know, you just got to do it. And then the next thing, all right, get a little light. Okay, I can do that. Either through the earbuds or through walking outside. And, you know, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the circadian rhythm and the reasons for that. But like, okay, get a little light. Okay, move around a little bit. You know, when I was filming the little video to companion to go along with this, with the book bundles, you know, I was out, we were chasing Lobie around in the sand and getting a little light. And that was the morning routine. Like, get a little movement, get a little light, you know, hit the hydration drink. Okay. Chapter 1, you know, you pretty much got that covered, and you got all the science and all the backing and all the reasons why you need to do that every day. But every one of those things is fucking easy.
Yeah, they're damn easy. And you touched on the first chapter here. One thing I wanted to do, which I really appreciated when Jordan B. Peterson did this, he had a lecture that he did, I think in the UK, because it was a British dude that brought him out, and it was in front of a large audience. And this is prior to his book, 12 Rules for Life. He just went through chapter by chapter, giving little tidbits and pointers on that. And a lot of people would say like, oh, you just gave the book away. But that's completely not the case. Obviously, with something like what you've written here, it took, what, 3 or 4 years of devoting to?
Well, you can either say a lifetime or 2 years.
Yeah.
Like
2 years of actual writing, a lifetime of
accumulating
fucking up
and living.
And accumulating, and then gravitating towards what works.
Because all those stories are in here. All the times I fucked up, from when I was younger to when I was in college to when, you know, that's the part of the book that we organized called Getting Owned. You know, like we've all been there, getting owned by life, getting owned by bad choices, by bad information. And I think it's important to recognize that, like, me and you, we weren't born perfect. You know, like, we didn't just come out of the gate just optimizing from the drop. You know, we fucking did a bunch of stupid shit. And then we figured it out. We figured out what works, and we learned and we grew and we improved. And then now all of a sudden, you know, you probably even more than me, but we're living some closer approximation to this optimized life.
Yeah, that definitely takes hustle. It always strikes a nerve with me when you see like the guy who's made it and they just act like they've always been there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
that means they're probably not there at all.
Yeah.
Because they're probably faking it. They're probably faking it. If they're going to be that dishonest about that,
I'm
they're probably dishonest about what they're doing right now.
Yeah. I'm so dialed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate it when guys like Tony Robbins or Eckhart Tolle, they really open up and talk about the period of life where they were depressed or the shit they had to go through to get to where they are today.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't leave anything uncovered in this book. But You know, we touched on chapter 1. Do you mind if we break down piece by piece like that? So we got water, light, and movement. And the water is obviously a bit more special than just fucking drinking, you know, something out of the fridge or tap water.
You know what's funny is like I always knew that I was dehydrated in the morning, but I didn't realize that we lose a pound of water overnight just breathing, right? Because like there's an air humidity, and then there's the internal water vapors that come out of our moist water sac of a body. And so as we expel that moisture-rich air from our body and breathe in less moisture-rich air from the outside, we're losing water constantly. That's why we're lighter in the morning. It's not like a fucking miracle, like a stork came and took some fucking fat off your body. And you're like, woo, I'm light this morning. I burned fat. Like, where do you think it went? Like, what does it do? It fucking, no, it's water. It's water is the reason why. And so making sure that you rehydrate first thing, because it doesn't take much for dehydration to start to fuck you up. I mean, you intentionally dehydrated yourself and you probably felt the effects when you were cutting weight, you know, and already right from the drop, the moment you start getting dehydrated, your thinking is less clear. You're a little disoriented. You're a little more aggravated. I mean, how many times did you snap at people? One of the calmest, nicest human beings I've ever
weeks
met.
Prior to fight camp, I was not the guy to be around.
Yeah,
I think that's fairly common.
Snapping at people. And that's, you would look at all these people who all they do is drink soda and coffee all day, and they're just fucking snapping at everybody. Like, yeah, well, let's take care of one basic thing. How about drink some fucking water? You know, put some minerals in there so that your electrolytes are getting covered too, so that you're supporting your adrenal glands, you're supporting your whole organ system. So pinch of sea salt, you know, probably for you and I, that's somewhere close to 5 grams that we're going to want in the morning. We say 3 grams in the book, but, you know, depending on that, a little bit of lemon for the bioflavonoids, get the gastric juices going, and room temperature, because obviously that absorbs better. Cold is contractive, warm is expansive. So warm is always going to absorb typically better. And just pound that first thing.
Yeah. It's funny when I started doing this, you know, people tell you these things, and then, you know, sometimes you don't always put it into practice. When I was reviewing this book and going through it, it was like, oh, okay, let me start to fucking try, you know, let me do this stuff and practice and walk the walk. And it amazed me how far my coffee would go if I did the water, movement, and sunlight first.
Yep.
It was like, oh, this just reset me. Now fucking coffee feels like the very first time, as opposed to leaning on it like a goddamn crutch with half a pot each day to start the day.
Don't talk to me until I have my pot of coffee. That's like a badge of honor for some people, right? Well, it's not the way it should be. Coffee should be that extra bonus, that performance enhancing plant that we use, you know, after we get through that first morning run and we feel pretty good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool too to see like different ways that I can implement this stuff. Like, oh, if I have to do these 3 things and I have to have movement and I should get sunlight, like just fucking go move outside, get outdoors, run my kid around the block, you know, take my dog outside, hit some morning yoga, do something just to move in the sunlight as it's coming up. And that pays dividends.
Well, that's the circadian rhythm, right? There's these things that Ben Greenfield loves using this word. It's called a Zeitgeber. And the Zeitgeber is like one of the signifying factors for setting your circadian rhythm, which is kind of like the balance and rhythm of life itself. It's like tells us to go to sleep at night, tells us to wake up at the dawn. But movement and light in particular are 2 of the main Zeitgebers that say, okay, we're woken up now. Like now it's time for waking time. Now it's time to be alert. And, you know, by just doing that basic stuff, you're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to be a lot more in accord, and you're going to get sleepier when you are ready to actually go to bed.
100%, brother. Well, let's talk about chapter 2 here. We got deep breath, deep freeze. One of my favorites.
Man, I'm so jealous of your fucking chest freezer setup that you have at home. I went in there and I dipped my fingers in there and I was at 40 degrees and it's just right there available. So yeah, I mean, we're both, you know, we both know the benefits of the cold and breath. Like these are like, you look at the free miracle drugs that are available in the world, and we're going to talk about a bunch of them, but we already talked about a couple. Well, water's not exactly free. We're recommending spring water. If you live by a spring, it's free. You just got to drive to it. So maybe there's some gas money. Or maybe you pay for water. Maybe you filter your water and then add the sea salt. You know, as long as you have a good filter and add back the sea salt, you're probably going to be all right. So water's kind of free, not exactly, but fucking light is typically free, especially if it's sunny. And then from there, you have breath and temperature, which are, well, maybe you'll buy a chest freezer, but you can use your shower, you know, depending on where you're at. So most of these, like, and these are fucking miracle drugs, man. Like breath and the cold in combination are incredible at reducing that kind of chronic stress that we all carry, that I've carried my fucking whole life. And there, you know, you have techniques where you can use breath, the hyperoxygenation practice. We talk about the Wim Hof breathing, but there's different types like the pranayama and yoga and fire breath and different ways to hyperoxygenate, along with exposure to the cold. And you're jacking up norepinephrine by 300, 500%, which is dropping those chronic levels of stress, those chronic levels of inflammation that are basically just burning your body up faster than you want to get used. You know, it's like instead of lighting the candle at the top and providing the flame, it's just kind of roasting the wax constantly across the whole length of the candle. And it's killing us. Like, quite frankly, it's just literally killing us. It's burning us up. And this is a technique to kind of slow that process down, to stop it, to halt those processes, which is great for the immune system, just great for fucking overall perspective.
It hits so many different angles, from cognitive function, you know, like you feel alive
right
in the cold. And when you get out for hours after, I mean, if I do a 5-minute bath, I'm good for the day.
Yeah.
You know, and then on top of that, you tie in the breath work and the breathing, hyperoxygenation. You know, there's so many things that go into that, from cognitive function to well-being, your mood, how it affects you emotionally. And then on top of that, you talked about inflammation, systemic inflammation. People often think of that as just a pain signal. But
yeah, like your joints.
Yeah, like, oh, okay, I know I have a little inflammation because I'm more sore from the work. It is that can be it. But truly, when you look at a lot of the causes of disease that we have in the West, start with systemic inflammation, or they're causing systemic inflammation. If you have serious gut issues, that can just have a cascade effect because it's all one system, right? And as we turn down that dial of systemic inflammation, that improves health in all areas.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, like, you get habituated to the stress. Like, really, actually, you know, the cortisol that you have, stress should actually reduce your inflammation, you know, and that's the way it's designed for. But when you have chronic stress, then you get habituated to all of those chemicals that actually shut off the inflammatory response. You get habituated and you build up a tolerance, and then you just can't shut off inflammation anymore. So when you get sick longer, you know, because, well, you feel sick longer. All those inflammatory symptoms of any kind of cold or anything you feel, your body is unable to shut it off because the normal processes that shut it off, it's just used to. It's habituated. It's like, you know, when you get desensitized to insulin and you can't drop your blood sugar anymore. You know,
yeah, insulin sensitivity is massive.
It's the same thing. Anything that we have chronically, the body develops a tolerance for, and that's when you get in real trouble. And this is a great way to kind of reset that tolerance.
Yeah, it's also a great way. You know, it's funny because Wim Hof talked a bit about this, but for people who struggle with meditation, and I've been there before, you can't think about anything else when you're in the cold. There's no other thought. You're not thinking about your wife. You're not thinking about the argument with your boss. You're not thinking about anything else, the thing your kid did that pissed you off. That's all fucking gone.
At 40 degrees?
You locked yourself into the present.
Yeah.
Right. Which is the teaching of so many great teachers like Eckhart Tolle and Wayne Dyer, and the list goes on and on. But truly, to have something that just locks you in to right now, even if it's just a moment in the day, it's so important, because then it's easier to get to. And you talk about, they say neurons that fire together wire together. So the more we grease that groove from a meditation standpoint, the easier it is to drop into that state of peace and calm.
Look, we're built to fight and adapt. You know, we're built to have short bursts of exertion and then long periods of recovery. Like, that's human nature. That's animal nature. You know, watch fucking Attenborough read his Planet Earth, and you look at all the animals and it's like, run, and then it's chill. You know, and that was the interesting thing. And most of the time it's chill. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. And that's why just a few minutes of cold exposure gives you that external resistance where your body has to focus all its effort on staying warm, on oxygenating, on all these factors, and then creating the adaptation downstream. And that's really what we're designed for. It's flex and then relax and then recover, you know, and that's what we're doing for the entire body and all the hormone systems when we're pushing ourselves into the cold, whether that's, you know, the power shower, I call it, where it's warm water and you take care of all your morning kind of toiletry needs and your personal care, and then just
wash your balls,
start the breathing. Yep. Start the breathing, or not, if you like the biome, stay where it is. Then just crank that nozzle cold, you know, start the breath, crank the nozzle cold, and you'll feel fucking awesome. And then if you hold your breath, this is another one of the Wim Hof like special techniques. If you hold your breath, particularly at the bottom of the breath, and then you get that mammalian dive reflex where you're holding your breath, that'll actually give you as much adrenaline as a fucking bungee jump, you know? And then at that point, you don't need coffee anymore. You don't need that adrenal stimulant. You've done it in the most natural way possible by just holding your breath and creating that natural response that doesn't have that kind of chemical burden. And you can save that other button for later. So it's like you keep a button available when you need it, but let's use this one while we got the chance.
Yeah, don't use all your lifelines.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
You got to save a few.
Man, lifelines
for the end of
yeah.
that $1 million question.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the 10 million rupees, depending on what you're watching. Well, let's jump into the next one. In chapter 3, we dive into breakfast. There's a ton of key takeaways here. It's something that both of us have been on the front lines really pushing towards people. More fat, less sugar, or don't eat.
Simple, right?
Yeah.
But how many times have we fucked that up? You know, I tell the story of eating Pop-Tarts in the book, like cinnamon Pop-Tart. Do you have a favorite Pop-Tart flavor?
I loved like the fruitier Pop-Tarts, the blueberry ones, shit like that.
You would love the fruity.
I love the fruity.
You would love that shit. For me, it was cinnamon all day, sometimes s'mores. But look at that fucking thing. Like, we're actually feeding that to people. Like, can you believe that? I mean, it's frosting on top of like refined carbohydrate, which is just like refined flour, which is basically sugar that in solid form.
Bleached wheat flour.
Yeah, exactly.
Enriched with synthetic vitamins.
And then in the middle is more frosting, you know, and then on the outside again is more fucking wheat flour. It's just like a sugar sandwich. And then you expect that to be like food? You know, that's not food. That's fucking poison.
Yeah, or a bowl of Fruity Pebbles with non-fat milk.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing to get in the way and slow down.
Let's blend the high fructose corn syrup in the Fruity Pebbles with some fucking concentrated lactose from the non-fat milk. Like, it's insane. And then we say, oh man, our kids are going crazy. Of course your kids are going crazy. The fuck are you feeding them? Of course you feel like shit. Of course you're exhausted. And that's just the state that we've gotten to. And we can go into a lot more about fat, but part of the problem is that somewhere along the lines, the science decided that, oh, fat is bad for the heart. Well, it turns out it's not, but that just allowed all of the sugar and all of the corn and all of the cane lobby to kind of come in.
Big agriculture.
Yeah, big ag, just to push all of that sugar through our system and then convinced us that that's breakfast. Okay, pancakes, Pop-Tarts, muffins, pastries, grab a donut. Donut for breakfast? Like, of all the times,
black coffee,
of all the times, don't do that. And what ends up happening is like that, you know, you get that big spike in blood sugar, and then that big spike, maybe you feel good on the rise. Ooh, okay, I'm awake. I got a rise in blood sugar. I'm feeling good. But real quick, that body dumps a bunch of insulin. And the thing about when the body dumps insulin and you have a bunch of sugar coming in, it doesn't know how much sugar's coming in. And that it needs to scuttle that sugar out of your blood as fast as possible because high levels of sugar in the blood is toxic. So the body's like, I don't know how much this fucking crazy monkey's eating. He found some fruit that he shouldn't have found.
So he found the sweetest fruit on earth.
Sweetest fruit on earth. And I don't know, he's going crazy. So let's just dump as much insulin as we possibly could to reduce that, you know, and overcompensate. So then all that comes in. Then you go hypoglycemic and you're exhausted and tired and irritable. And we go ping-ponging back and forth. And that's when, oh, I better get another snack. You know, like, so you're just bringing these sugary snacks with you all day and just ping-ponging up and down and up and down and that constant flood of insulin. Yeah, that's what's going to make you fat. That's what's going to give you diabetes. That's what's going to make you feel like shit all day. And as you're tired, then you drink more coffee and then more sugar. And it's this vicious cycle that some impossibly large number of people are just dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's funny because paleo gets such a bad rap for the name paleo and what did the paleo man eat and blah, blah, blah. It fucking varied wildly. But at the same time, there's none of our ancestors across any fucking corner of the earth that ate 6 meals a day that were loaded with sugar so heavy and devoid of fiber and fat.
Yeah.
That they don't exist in nature. That shit doesn't exist in nature. It's been chemically engineered for our taste buds through some of the best or worst scientists in the world. Yeah. That's the worst roller coaster on earth to be on.
And that's why, so, all right. So basic points here, eat fat. It's going to give you sustainable energy. It's going to fuel that other energetic system, the ketone system, that is also, you know, probably one of the cleanest fuel sources we can have, best for like mental clarity And also, you know, if you look at Mark Sisson's work and talk about providing both fuel sources, both from the sugar and both from the fat as well, from the carbohydrate and from the fat, then you're like a 2-powered jet instead of a jet that's running off one engine.
Yeah,
sure,
metabolic flexibility.
Sure, a jet can run off one engine, but off two is a lot better. And it doesn't create those big blood sugar spikes. So in the morning, just keep it high fat, keep it high protein, you know, or if you don't have those options, just don't eat. The idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, like fucking Nabisco or Kellogg's came up with that shit. Like, that's not real. It's
Dr.
not real.
Kellogg had some other fucked up ideas too.
Yeah,
you watched The Road to Wellville. You're like, this guy was fucked up.
Or read Chris Ryan's book. I think it was Kellogg who was like fucking putting on chastity belts and
don't masturbate.
Worrying about people masturbating and shit like that. I mean,
he was a fucking legit weirdo.
Legit weirdo. And that's not, it's all pseudoscience. It's all like things that the media has kind of put out and said, oh yeah, breakfast. No, it's not. It's not the most important meal of the day. And actually, with the science of intermittent fasting, the easiest way to intermittent fast, compress your feeding window to 8 hours for a normal social human, is to just skip breakfast. Then you have a nice lunch, and then you can have a nice dinner with friends or family. You know, if you start your first meal at 12 and then eat again at 7, easy enough. You know, you can even have some bone broth or some optimized coffee or something in the middle of the day, keep the fats high. Easy. And you'll live a longer life. You'll have more mental clarity. You'll have more energy doing it that way. And there's some caveats, you know, some women with some, you know, sensitive hormones, it might not be the best idea. This isn't for everybody, but certainly if all you got is sugar, don't stress. Just fucking skip it.
Yeah, it's an easy way to get hydrated too. As I've condensed down to that 8-hour feeding window, if I wake up and I'm hungry, I just drink more high quality water. And in doing that, by the time I have my, you know, I start on a lot of days, my day with an optimized coffee or an optimized yerba mate.
Yeah.
High in fat, moderate protein. And in doing that, I've given my space the time to actually soak in all the water and the electrolytes from that. So now it's like I said, it's twofold in the energy that I get. And then it's very easy for me to have just 2 solid meals after that. I'm not snacking and grazing all fucking day long because I've front loaded the fats and I've given myself space to take that in.
Yeah. And this other idea that we need to eat a bunch of small meals a day, like that became really popular. It's like, oh no, eat a bunch of small meals a day. Like doesn't have scientific basis either, unless you're putting out constant exertion. Like, yeah, if you're on a bike and you're fucking riding the tour or climbing a mountain, for sure. You know,
or if you're an actual bodybuilder.
Yeah, exactly. Eat all day. Great. You know, but for most people, that's not gonna, you know, we want to use our metabolic system and then rest our metabolic system. Use it and rest. Use it and rest. This is the cycle. This is the pattern that repeats all throughout the book. Stress, great. Use it and rest. Okay, food, great. Use it and rest. Everything we do it and then rest. That's the way we're supposed to, that's the way we're supposed to operate, not constantly grinding, constantly eating, constantly, you know, I mean, I guess the only exception would be you can probably constantly be sipping on water or something like that. You know, that's fine. But for the most part, you know, that idea of little meals at all different times is not going to allow your body the time to actually recover.
Yeah, these things are meant to be placed on hold, you know, and there's so much science coming out about the circadian rhythm of the microbiome, right? A lot to it. Well, let's dive into the next one, supplements. We know a thing or two about supplements here.
We do know a thing or two about it. I think really I just wanted to focus on the key ones.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, like, we shouldn't look at supplements just as pills. Like, sunlight is a supplement. It creates a vitamin D boost in the body when you get sunlight on your skin. And that is a supplement. So you can take your vitamin D supplement outside, or you can take it in a squirt bottle like we have it. Either way, it's a supplement. You know, you can take your omega-3 supplement. You can take krill oil, which is awesome. Or you can eat your can of sardines, you know, and intentionally choose food that'll make that happen. You can take your greens powder or just crush a smoothie with a bunch of greens and microgreens and broccoli sprouts and spinach and all kinds of different stuff, or greens juice. You can do it that way. So really, I wanted to talk about a lot of different ways and expanding that definition of supplementation, but it's really going after some major groups, you know, antioxidants, omega-3s, minerals. Minerals is also huge, you know, an Epsom salt bath for magnesium, or, you know, key minerals, you know, you can take that. There's so many ways to go about it, but there's certain basic things and systems that we just need to hit.
Yeah. And it's important we cover those bases because we're looking at the big picture globally.
Sure, absolutely. And, so talked about B vitamins, of course, the TPC packs, when we talk to different athletes or different people coming in who we know might not have the greatest understanding of what they should eat, like that's a great starting point because it's got the krill oil, it's got the spirulina chlorella, and then it's got the special stuff that we really can't get from food. I mean, that's what Onnit's known for, right? The alpha brain, the shroom tech sport. Like you're not going to go find ashwagandha bundles in Whole Foods that are ready to go.
Or forage for cordyceps synthesis.
Yeah, no. Unless you're in Nepal, and then you're really lucky to find some shit like that. Or, and the pond scum in your pool is not Huperzia serrata. Like that's not the right moss, So there's certain other supplements that are really going to enhance performance. And, obviously that's one of our specialties.
Yeah. And I think one of the keys that really is outlined here is that, you can't, just like I mentioned with coffee and people on the Facebook lives, we do weekly things like that. Everybody's like, oh, I got brain fogged. Would Alpha Brain help? And it's like, well, Alpha Brain's going to help you, but you don't want to lean on that the way I used to lean on coffee. Let's get your shit in order. And then you'll take yourself to a whole nother level with that supplement because you're right. Your body is right. Your mind is right. And now you add something in extra. And that's where you really see it shine.
So what's causing the brain fog? Well, it's probably the chronic inflammation. So you start doing those cold water immersions and the hyperoxygenation, drop your chronic inflammation, your brain fog is already better. And then you boost the acetylcholine through Alpha Brain, and then you're like a superhuman. You got superpowers at that point. So
firing on all 8 cylinders.
Yep.
So this was one of my favorite chapters. This is something I've been doing for probably the last year and a half. Talk about driving. And mindfulness and mindfulness.
Yep.
Let's break that down.
Driving is like, a lot of people think of it as wasted time, and Robert Greene calls it dead time versus alive time. Like it's just the time in between where you're actually doing stuff. Well, what if we made that time really valuable? Because if you're going to have a day and you're going to do this, I mean, people commute for sometimes years of their life if you accumulate it all total. So what can you do with that time in transition? Well, there's basically 2 ways. One is to empty out your mind, and the other is to add stuff into your mind, mindfulness or mindfulness, and that's really the principle there. And there's some techniques, like people think like meditation has to be done in the right room with the right incense, with the right music and the candles burning. And I like it that way too, but it's not necessary. There's ways to be mindful by just simply being, and not distracting yourself, not checking your phone at every stoplight, not listening to distracting music and, stressing about work. But I talk about the wide peripheral gaze, which is something I learned from Tom Brown, where you just allow all of the available information from your entire visual spectrum to come at you at once, and then combine that with 6 deep breaths, which a Japanese study showed drops blood pressure, starts the state shift, and just allow that all to come in. And you're still seeing everything. So obviously if you're in a crazy, hectic driving situation, maybe not the time, maybe wait till you're stopped, but just allow the presence of everything that's happening at once to just take over your mind and empty out your mind of all the other shit. And then all of a sudden you're meditating on the way to work. And by the time you get to work, you're in a really good place. And then when you're done with that, all right, what about filling your mind? What about listening to the Own the Day audiobook or a great podcast from one of the many outstanding podcasts that exist? Then you're leveling up and you've already done some meditation and all you've done is drive. So the drive is like a benefit. Oh, I got a 45-minute drive. Instead of it being like, man, I have a 45-minute commute. It's like, oh, I have the opportunity to learn or be present for 45 minutes twice a day. Sweet.
Yeah.
And just kind of reframe that principle.
You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I think the visual you gave was the opening scene in Office Space, which is fucking classic, right? It really is a situation where, I mean, it can be brutal if we don't have an idea on how to use that time effectively. But when we do shift that, hey, this is something I'm gonna learn. I'm really looking forward to that. Like I love traveling alone. Not with the little guy where I have to play fucking dad the whole flight. But when I'm traveling alone, like I can grind through books and grind through podcasts. I can throw on binaural beats and meditate, and it turns a 3-hour flight into one of the greatest experiences I could possibly have.
That's what my mom talked about too, because she was traveling as a pro tennis player, and she was, when she was landed, she always felt like she had to be either training or stretching or decompressing or strategizing for her next match or figuring it out. There's something that she could do. But back in the day when she was traveling, I mean, this is 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there wasn't shit to do. So she's on a plane. She was traveling through Europe. She didn't bring enough books to carry her the whole way through either. So she would just get to sit on the plane and be. They didn't have in-flight entertainment screens and shit like that. And she said it was one of the things she looked forward to the most because she was off duty. I'm off duty. I can just totally be at peace here. There's nothing I can do to improve my tennis playing. There's nothing I can do to improve my career. I can just be. And that was, a little escape for her.
Yeah, 100%, brother. Well, now we get juicy. Now I should say the caveat here. Right when we got to this chapter 6, the power plants, I was hoping we would dive deep into the jungles, as you've mentioned before. But that's for a later time, another book,
different
right?
Book.
Different book. So
because you don't want to do psychedelics every day.
And then
this is on the day. That
truly could be an entire fucking book, right? And it will be.
Yeah.
So you dumbed it down into, I shouldn't say dumbed it down. You intelligently selected the plants that can influence us the best way, and also fucking it up. How we fuck it up. How do we take something good from Mother Nature given to us in tandem from whatever source there is, and fucking turn it into one of the most toxic substances on earth. We've
done that with so many plants.
Right? And we have a right way and a wrong way to do anything. So let's break that down a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, the plants have provided so much for us, from nutrition to some of the best drug interactions with the human brain that we could possibly fathom. And when we get greedy, we try to isolate that and make it stronger and make it more addictive. But when we do it in natural accord, and we have our own mindfulness surrounding it, they can be like incredible allies. So we've kind of talked about one. We talked about caffeine. Mm-hmm. And so, all right, there's the super concentrated way. There's pounding a red line, corn syrup and more caffeine than anybody should have at one time, hundreds of milligrams of caffeine. Well, that's in and of itself an abuse of what came from a plant, from coffee beans that were full of antioxidants, or tea that's full of L-theanine, polyphenols and all kinds of benefits. And then there's also just the overuse of it, like you said, where you're basically using coffee or caffeine just to get normal, let alone, boost you and give you extra powers. It's just like, oh, I need caffeine now to make me normal. So we talk about, caffeine is one of those main ones, the different types of tea, the different ways how if you blend it with fat becomes the rate limiting factor for absorption, because the gallbladder has to release bile, and then the bile has to break down the fat, and the caffeine gets bound with the fat. And so you absorb the caffeine more slowly. So it's like this own time release mechanism. So instead of a quick spike and then a drop in those hormone levels, you can stabilize it more over time. So, the idea of putting cream in coffee was a good idea, but when it became non-fat milk or soy milk or something like that, or black, that's already when we're taking a step backwards. And then when it became energy drinks, that's when we're taking a bunch of steps backwards.
Yeah, we're adding 6 pumps of sugar and everything else they want to add to that shit. Well, let's talk about probably the largest red flag you thought the editors would have an issue with. We dive deep into nicotine.
That's something that I have, I would always smoke cigars, and I would like that, but that was something that was very rare for me. So it was more like my own ritual and my own kind of recreational ritual, but I didn't really understand the capabilities of nicotine until you turned me on to these guys right here, which is, I was preparing for Tim Ferriss's podcast, and we were talking about the thing under $100 that made the most significant impact in my life in the last year or so. And it's these snooze packs, and this allows me to deliver nicotine into my system in one of the least toxic ways possible. Like the Royal London College of Physicians says it's over 100 times less harmful than smoking a cigarette, which, by the way, cigarettes, like there's no excuse, under no circumstances should you ever fucking smoke a cigarette. And a lot of the negative stigma around tobacco is due to cigarettes. Even my shaman down in Peru, Don Howard Lawler, says the problem with tobacco is inhaling it. Like the problem is the damage that's done to the lungs over time and the overabuse and that choice of delivery mechanism. But nicotine in itself is an incredible, it's an incredible compound that opens up all kinds of different mental energy, creativity. I mean, just yesterday, last night, it was about 6 o'clock, just dusk. I was watching the sunset, walking up the hill in my house. I put in one of these Swedish snus packs, which is just a really clean tobacco pouch that you turned me on to. It's called Volt. Put in a Volt. I can only last 5 minutes with a Volt. Maybe 5 minutes. I might be giving myself extra credit. I might be pumping pad my stats. It might be 3 minutes. Walking the hill, and then the moon was rising, the sun was setting. I put that in, and boom, 2 dope poems came to me, and I just popped open my recorder and they came to me. They would not have come to me if it wasn't for the tobacco that I was using. That opened up a connection. And that's why in South American tradition, when you smoke mapacho, they call tobacco a chacaruna, a bridge. And chacaruna is Quechua for bridge. And it's a bridge to another access level of consciousness, another access level of thinking. And then I got in and I wrote both of those poems within half an hour because I got the download. But I owe credit to that and everybody who reads it for this little tin from fucking Sweden. That, I have no doubts in my mind that that's what enabled that thing to kind of click in place. So it's been one of the best allies I've had. Now, could you abuse it? For sure. Could you get addicted to it? For sure.
No doubt.
And that's why it's important to take breaks, to rest. Even if you think oh, I could quit anytime, prove that. Always prove that shit.
I know a lot of stoners that say the same thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked one more, and that was the beautiful plant moss that we have in our alpha brain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the third and final.
Yeah. I mean, that is another thing that acts directly on the neurotransmitter level, acts on acetylcholine. And we touched on that a little bit. And it's one of those plants that you really can't get in any other easy delivery mechanism than in a compound like we have in alpha brain. And we've surrounded that with a lot of other supportive plants as well. And that's just another one of those tools that really locks in different clarity, and alpha brain for unlocking poetry and creativity and sensitivity to, my surroundings. That's not it. That's nicotine for me, or that's sometimes marijuana, but in a kind of different way, but that's not alpha brain. Alpha brain is remembering shit, being on my game, being focused, getting a bunch of shit done, and I think having all these tools in your arsenal, from the caffeine to the nicotine to the alpha brain, then you really have you're like a gunslinger, okay, what do I want to do? How do I want to perform? What superpower do I want to put on? What cape do I want to wear right now? I want to wear I'm fucking super focused and I'm crushing it cape. All right, cool. I'll go grab the alpha brain. I want to wear I'm not tired at all. I have boundless energy. All right, let's put on the fucking optimized coffee cape. All right, I want to unlock creativity, have more focus, drop into a state of kind of calm attention. All right, boom, I'll bust out the snooze can, and then when you have those tools available, it just allows you to be that much more productive and that much more effective and that much more powerful as a human. It's we're almost taking these plants on as a wizard takes on spells or something. And
boom. Time to power up in the video game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love it, brother. So we drop in next to doing work.
Doing work.
Know the why. That's a fucking big one.
Yeah.
I think that goes into so much that we have in life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I fucked this up twice on a recent podcast. The quote, "A man who knows any how will accomplish the why." It's reverse of that. A man who knows any why can accomplish any how to get it done.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the importance of that as we're doing work, whatever we're going through, whatever job we have. Paul Chek talked about the prostitute archetype on a previous podcast, so I'll bring that up, but I think it's applicable.
Totally.
And desk hygiene, minimizing distractions. Let's dive into that. How can we make the most out of our workday?
Yeah. Well, again, why is the thing? Because you have to know why for all these questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing anything? If we don't know why, we won't really do it. And if we don't know why we're working really, and we're just saying, well, I got to do it for this, or I got to do it for this, or this is what my parents told me I should do, or we got to assimilate that into our big why. Why are we here? What do we want to do? Do we want to live a full life? Do we want to leave the world a better place than what we found it? Do we want to support those that we love? Okay, now we have a pretty good why that's starting to form. All right, well, how does work fit into that? Well, maybe it's a temporary why. Well, right now, this is the best damn job that I could get, and I got hungry mouths to feed, including my own. So that's why I'm here. So what can I do while I'm here that accomplishes that why the most effectively? Well, probably make the most amount of money with the limited amount, the least amount of energy, and the most availability to do the other shit that you really love. So maybe that's your why. And that was my why for a while when I was slanging fleshlights and doing other,
slanging jerk-off toys.
Yeah, fucking gold mining and all these other crazy, things that I had when I had my marketing company. It was like, I just got to bide time because I know I'm going to create something I love at some point, but I'm not ready yet. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the connections. And I was miserable before that because I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I here? And then finally I realized like, oh, I'm here to bide time, to collect money, to gather resources. And that's why I'm here. So how can I be as effective as I can in this job, but still leave my mind available, leave my energy available, not get stressed, still keep my options open for the next why that's coming? And then it totally reframed everything. So I didn't slump through the door like, oh my God. I was like, no, I know why I'm here. I'm here for this particular fucking reason. I hate it, but that's cool because I'm doing it for an intention. And that is by far the biggest thing, to take away from that work chapter. And then there's a bunch of other little, tips, tactics, and hacks to just kind of make yourself more productive wherever you're at.
Yeah, desk hygiene is one that comes to mind. It's obviously something we've talked about quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Kelly Starrett wrote an entire book called Desk Bound, which is a phenomenal deep dive into that. Yeah. But I think there's some very easy takeaways, like having a standing desk, having a foot pedal, something you can fidget with so that you're not just standing in place, which is ultimately not that much better for you than just sitting in place, right? We like to move. We're made to move. So if we can move around at our desk, that can have a tremendous impact on blood flow, getting oxygen and nutrients to the brain, staying awake, being productive.
It's one of the biggest things that I've still fucked up. Like this is, so when I meet Aaron Alexander and, started to develop that relationship, who's a movement specialist and is really kind of taking me to task with my own posture and my own movement patterns and looking at my body, like I'm already in a deficit. My head pitches forward. I have kind of chronic stress in my traps. And as the body is tight, so is the psyche, so is the emotional body. As you have these things that are constricting you physically, you have these things that are constricting you energetically, and staying in these locked, unnatural patterns for too long will do that. So I am going to have to be on the computer for many, many hours a day. But how I am in physicality while I'm on that computer is my choice. That's my choice. Whether I'm on the computer or not is not my choice right now. At some point, maybe I will have that choice. But right now, I got to be on there. That's my task management software. That's my emails. That's where I write. That's where I do all the things that I need to do. But I can do that a variety of different ways, and finding the ways to do that intelligently, where you're being conscious of your posture, of moving in between, of standing and sitting and alternating your position. We have that choice. So if we start doing that stuff, and I start doing that now, then I won't be all curled up and gnarled when I'm 60 and I'm already starting to have different tension injuries and different things in my mid back and low back. And all of that is not because I'm not fit. It's not because I'm not working out. I'm doing all that, but it's because I'm spending 10 hours a day in an unnatural position.
Yeah. And we can affect that. Kelly talks about passive sitting or active sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're in the car, we're passively sitting. There's no fucking choice to be made. We can't stand up. I mean, unless you're Aaron Alexander, you're not going to sit in full lotus with an erect spine. Yeah. Like you just, that's not on the table of choices. But if we have the choice, we can choose to do it right.
Yeah. I've tried to get like in pigeon in a car where I like lift one leg up and I always end up fucking like catching the steering wheel. I'm like swerving around.
One leg's on the dashboard of the Tesla.
It's not safe. I mean, I can kind of get my left leg up like one like lizard, like on near the left window there. Mm-hmm. But my right leg, if I start fucking with my right leg, it's all hell breaks loose in the car. So yeah, you're right. I mean, but still you can, if you have something that can push your kind of lumbar forward, and really sit on your sit bones and then drop your shoulders, pull your neck back, there's a lot of things you can do in any position that'll really help you out.
Yeah. And being mindful of how your neck feels, am I fucking squeezing that wheel like I'm in combat, or am I just relaxed in my approach and my drive?
Yeah.
Like all those things add up over time. So we get here to eat a weird lunch, which we shot an awesome video yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
Wow. We ate a fucking weird lunch.
Yeah.
Dive into that a bit. Let's break that down.
Yeah. I think there's like 12 foods that comprise like some astronomically high percentage of our food intake. And those 12 foods, a lot of them are nutrient devoid. We're talking wheat, we're talking chicken, we're talking which is fine. They have some macronutrient, wheat's probably not the best, it's mostly carbohydrate, but they do have some macronutrients, especially when you get into the protein. But it's the variety that's going to cover all the micronutrient bases, those things that support your gut biome, those things that support healthy inflammation response, those things that have antioxidants, that have those rare minerals like boron and copper and molybdenum and manganese and all of these things that when you actually research, you're like, oh, damn, this is involved in a lot of different reactions and a lot of different parts of the body. And the best way to do that, even to have a healthy gut biome, there's good science and studies behind that, is to eat a varied diet, eat the widest variety of food possible. And we have a fucking unbelievable opportunity to do that. Like our grocery stores provide a plethora of different options. Like if you don't know what rutabaga is, well, try it one day. Look up something, make mashed rutabaga instead of mashed potatoes and check it out. And it just so happens that rutabaga has a lot of indications for benefiting candida imbalance. Okay, cool. So now you have a medicinal food that you can mix with grass-fed butter and try it. And you've probably just walked by that thing and said, what the fuck is that in the produce section?
I'm not cooking that shit.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't know how. But make it a game. Make it something you explore and try and figure out and have fun with.
Yeah, and it's easy too for the people that are on a time crunch or they don't pre-pack their meals and bring them to work. If you live in a city, odds are there's a lot of different ethnic foods out there. You can try Thai food. You can go to the Ethiopian restaurant that we love. I mean, it's limitless options when it comes to stuff like that. And they're going to use ingredients that we just don't really know how to cook with or we haven't been introduced to. And you got to take it easy on the spice level at some of these restaurants. But for the most part, you're going to get a lot of other things that can help our body in a number of ways.
Yeah, you take one spice from Ethiopia, the berbera spice, and it's actually a combination of 12 different spices. And each one of those 12 have different micronutrient qualities, different benefits that you have. So you take some spinach, you saute it in some butter, olive oil, avocado oil, and then you put some berbera on it. And all of a sudden you have a food that has 15 different foods. You've already busted out of that 12 food number immediately with one side dish. You're at 15 already. You got avocado oil, you got spinach, and then you got fucking 12 spice berbera, maybe with a little dash of sea salt. And it's delicious. You can put some Primal Kitchen Ranch on it to make it even more delicious. Maybe some pumpkin seeds on it, give you that nitric oxide bump. And then you're at 16 foods and you got all kinds of benefits. And the other thing is you don't have all those anti-nutrients that we put in our body all the time. And I talk about this again, going back to kids. If you got kids, probably one of the worst things you can give them is some of that yellow Kraft cheese, because that's going to have not only the preservatives like sodium benzoate, which guess what? Increases hyperactivity in kids, increases the opportunity for ADD, and not only that. My
kid doesn't listen to me. I don't know why.
Yeah. And not only that, it has yellow number 6, which also increases hyperactivity and, ADD. So what are you doing here? Are you going to really look at the cause of some of this stuff? The micronutrient deficiencies? They've shown that kids who have micronutrient deficiencies are exponentially more likely to end up in juvenile hall. And actually, if you correct those micronutrient deficiencies, they're exponentially more likely to not come back. A lot of the things that are happening, we're trying to handle with the criminal justice system, we could handle with the fucking cafeteria. That's going to be way more effective.
I should let you know, they are serving Kraft singles in jail from the experience that I have. It's a whole different side story. But maybe that's how they keep them coming back.
That's how they keep them coming back. Exactly.
What is that? The
prison industrial
Prison industrial complex. There we go. The for-profit prison system that we have in our country.
Get you hooked on fucking yellow number 6 and sodium benzoate and starve you of nutrients. Come out fucking hungry and ready to commit crime again.
I can't help but come
just
back.
out of boredom. You just fucking attention span won't allow you to not.
You got a craft singles addiction you can't kick.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about another one of my absolute favorites, the binaural power nap.
Yeah.
It's something I've been big on for many years. I think, read a book that you turned me on to, Sleep by Nick Littlehales, where we think of sleep differently instead of having, and we'll dive into that, but really how we can optimize cognitive function, rest and recovery, and how important it is that not everyone can take a nap, but look at across the world, how many cultures still have siesta. They still take a break where they can commit time to themselves for resting, relaxing, and just being.
Yeah, that's what the human organism was meant to do. This 8 hours of sleep a night is fucking nonsense. Like you really have to be a special individual to be able to get that. Like Liv Langdon can do it, like Whitney can do it. I certainly can't. I haven't been able to do that shit since I was a child. So I was always feeling like, man, I got no option. I just have trouble sleeping at night. And what am I going to do? Because I wasn't a napper, But then when I started looking, first of all, I read Nick Littlehales' book, who says, no, fuck 8 hours of sleep a night. Let's talk about 30 to 35 sleep cycles a week, which is like a 90-minute block where ideally you dip into deep sleep and then go into your inner phase and then end up in REM sleep and then wake up for a brief period and then dip back in. Usually forget the fact that you wake up, but you can count it basically like a 90-minute block. Let's try to get 30 to 35 of those a week. And guess what? Taking a power nap, a 30-minute nap, counts as one of those cycles. So if you only slept 6 hours in the night, but you get that 30-minute nap in, according to Nick Littlehales, who's worked with David Beckham, the Manchester United, Ronaldo, the best, some of the best athletes in the world, and tried and tested this, is a much better model. And the other thing is it takes the pressure off. Like, how stressful it is when you got like 5 hours before you have to wake up. You're like, oh my God, I can't sleep and I got to get up in 5 hours. I'm going to be fucking destroyed. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get 4 hours tonight. That's cool. Or 4.5, let's say. All right, that's cool. That's 3 sleep cycles. Well, I can probably get a 30-minute nap on the plane because usually, a lot of times that's when I have a flight to catch. So a 30-minute nap on the plane. I'll get a 30-minute nap when I arrive and I'll be at 5. I'll be like, fine. I'll be not only in deficit, but let's say I only got 1 of those and I have 4 that day. Cool. Well, I'll maybe try and go for 7.5 hours overnight the next night and get 1 more and I'll get 6 the next day. And then I'm right on course for my 35 or however it goes. It just allows you to modulate a little bit.
Yeah.
more.
And you have flexibility because it's a weekly process, right? But it's somewhere along the lines, probably the same doctors that were saying whatever number of brain cells we have as a kid is all we get our whole lives, which turned out to be complete bullshit. Same thing. It's like, oh, well, you can never make up sleep. Like, no, that's not fucking true at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can, and our body knows how to respond to that. So it's typical if you had a shitty night's sleep and you have decent sleep hygiene, that when you go to bed the next day, you will have more deep sleep and more REM sleep.
Yeah,
and you can track that shit on a fucking Oura ring.
Tell that to a Navy SEAL that comes off a fucking, time out in the field and they sleep for 36 hours straight. Like, duh, we make up on sleep. Of course we do.
Yeah.
It's just the body wouldn't be that dumb. Like the bodies are amazing. And that's another thing. Like we have this idea that we're these faulty machines. Bodies aren't, the bodies aren't dumb. They've evolved to be as effective as possible. And there's going to be times when you're not going to be able to sleep. So there's going to be mechanisms at play that allow you to catch up. And naps is one of those. One of the studies that I love though is, they did a study comparing more overnight sleep with coffee and napping for alertness, mental acuity, and performance. And napping just crushed the other 2 categories. So like napping is better than more coffee and better than overnight sleep. So actually you're better off getting less sleep, napping in the day than getting more sleep at night. It just, that doesn't usually work with the traditional 9 to 5 industrial civilization. You show up at work, stay all day, come home, eat dinner, play with the kids, go to bed, repeat. But we can build that in, especially if we pack our own lunch and then slap on some noise canceling headphones. And just, even if you don't go all the way to sleep, by dropping the brainwave state into something more parasympathetic, which is what the binaural beats do. It's this brainwave entrainment that takes you from that waking beta state, that super stressed alert state, into a more parasympathetic state, like the theta state where the brain waves drop, like that counts too. That's what Nick Littlehale calls a controlled recovery period. So if you got an hour for lunch at your office, go in your car, put on the air conditioning, put on your noise canceling headphones, have a 30-minute binaural beat, and allow yourself to recover after you've eaten, you know, a nice weird lunch for 30 minutes as well. And then you got your hour and you haven't gone anywhere and you're fully recharged and recovered and you're going to kill it in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's an excellent reboot. So we come to training and we kind of went back and forth. A lot of people have particular times a day that they can train, and there's room for that. It's not this is the only prescription, right? But there is an optimal time to train in the day, and that's why we've left it here post lunch. Anybody who's ever performed strength feats and tried to do a max effort first thing in the morning, right when they wake up, will notice my grip isn't there. Things aren't firing. You know, like it takes some time for our nervous system to wake up, for our body to really start firing on all 8 cylinders, and then we can get the most high performance workouts done in that early afternoon to early evening.
Yeah. Talk about a lot of stuff. Training chapter is massive in there. And some of it is, you know, the way that we go about, you know, first of all, it's just exercising and it's just training, period. Like this is the miracle drug of all miracle drugs that is absolutely free. You want to look at any fucking marker, depression, anxiety, sexual performance, sleep performance, what you name it, hormone, you fucking name it. Exercise is going to help, you know, and that's why when you talk to someone like Tim Kennedy, you know, he'll say some outrageous things about, you know, different medical conditions, and he'll be like, well, are you training? Then don't talk to me about your fucking medical condition, because he knows that there's a miracle drug that's available that all of us should be taking at some level first before we start chasing down other pills that shake in little bottles. Let's make sure that we're at least taking the minimum effective dose of this miracle drug. You know, and that's movement, that's exercise. So that's like the first key point. And then the next point is like, all right, how are we going to do that? Are we going to do a bunch of fixed position Cybex weight machines and try and just pump up our pecs and biceps and curl our shoulders forward? Yeah, totally. Or are we going to move in patterns that the human organism likes to move? Are we going to use kettlebells and maces and clubs and ropes and sprint and move around and just body weight, calisthenics? You know, that's, or yoga, that's going to be a much better way to get the body moving than the very kind of vain, aesthetic driven approach that a lot of us have.
Preacher curls aren't in the book anywhere?
I mean, I'll do them occasionally. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do them, but then what else are you doing to balance it out? Like, how are you lengthening the arms? Are you using some Indian clubs and snapping through to really open up the arms? Are you doing, you know, tea kettle exercises for your shoulder mobility? Are you doing myofascial release, you know, after you do a big day of bench to make sure that your chest and pec minor isn't too tight, like mine chronically is from fucking 27 years of benching or whatever the fuck I've done.
Same here. You get what Kelly Starrett calls douchebag shoulders. You're walking around like a douchebag because your chest is too tight.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a key. And we built a little training pyramid that give people an idea of like, all right, ideally you want this much power training, this much strength training, this much durability training, this much cardiovascular training, and this much just movement and mobility, you know? So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive chapter, but it gives a full outline of just the basics, and also a couple workouts that anybody can follow, some just body weight. So if you haven't bought any of the Onnit shit, all good. You know, you have your body.
It's beautiful because you can start with anyone. Like anyone can get better from this. And it's something I was talking to John Wolf about as we're rolling out the Onnit 6, a full 6-week body weight only program for people. And obviously you jumped in for the motivation and inspirational piece of that. I talked a bit about diet and supplementation. We had Liv Langland to go over some incredible recipes, ways you can cook for yourself, so you're able to hit it from all angles.
We're gonna get one of those mushroom burgers in about 30 minutes too.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah. But just this idea that you can start anywhere. And even Matt Vincent talked about that, you know, like there's no excuse. You can move a certain way no matter where you're at. When he had his 5th surgery on his knee in 2 years, he would hobble into the gym on crutches, and he would plant his ass into an incline bench with 2 20-pound dumbbells, and he would crush his upper body for an hour. And like, that's not heavy enough weight for him to get stronger, but he could for damn sure burn fat, get a pump, and feel better about his day.
He's still taking the miracle drug.
He's still getting the miracle drug.
You know, and that's the key thing, you know, and it's not just it's not just what you do in the gym. It's what you're doing all the time. Like you can do that at any point. And I think we get these kind of ego driven ideas of like, oh, if I didn't go to CrossFit today, I'm fucking worthless. Like, okay. Or you just walk extra with your dog, or you run around and you know, play game, or you go for a swim or do something else. Like that's cool too. Like take some of the pressure off and really understand like, what's your goal here? You know, and your goal is to take the miracle drug, feel great, be able to live, you know, play on the playground that is life. Like if your buddy's going out surfing, like, all right, be good if you could paddle and try to get up on the board, you know, because that's a dope experience, you know. Or if you're going to go play a little, you know, pickup game of basketball, can you move around and laugh and talk shit with your friends? Like, okay, that's a fun thing to do. It's like, just allow yourself to participate in life. Like that's the biggest thing, you know. At least at that level, maybe you're not an elite performer, but at least you're in the game.
Yeah, you don't want to be stuck on the sidelines watching other people play.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we move from training into rest, reset, and reconnect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is where another part of the book that's, you know, going to catch people off guard. Like, and this is another thing that Ben Greenfield's great at, who is a big part of the, you know, organization of this timeline in this book. He's like, all right, what's the best time to have a drink? What's the best time to have a glass of wine? And he has elderberry wine that he brews in his own backyard. Not all of us are going to have that, but if you're going to have a glass of wine after training is actually the best time. And, you know, everybody talks about, oh, you know, there's a lot of stuff just trickled down from like hardcore bodybuilding. Like, oh yeah, there's that anabolic window. You got to fucking stuff yourself right after. Yeah, you can, you know, maybe that's good for bodybuilding, but the human body, you know, the growth hormone adaptation, actually, if you wait, can actually be preferable if you don't feed yourself.
Yeah. Mark Sisson talked quite a bit about that in, I think, 3 of his books.
Yeah. And so Ben says, all right, at this point, you're going to be a little bit dehydrated from your workout, and so you're going to have less blood volume. So the same amount of alcohol that your liver has to process, that your body has to process, is going to have an even greater effect. So you'll feel an even bigger buzz. And that's why, obviously, if you drink on an empty stomach, you feel it more. But also if you drink after a workout, you feel it more, because, and that's a good thing. Like it just means you drink less, you know, like don't have this badge of honor, like
let a little go a long way.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll save your wallet. It'll save your liver, your brain. It's, if you're participating in a ketogenic diet, that means less total carbs. All of it factors in.
Yeah, 100%. So have a glass of wine, and that's also going to help you connect with your family, or connect with your kid, or connect, you know, it just allows you to be social. If it's not a glass of wine, maybe it's a fucking hit of CBD, or maybe it's a hit of THC, or maybe it's a Zevia soda or something like that. Some kind of reward for you at the end of the day, something that you can look forward to. Like, oh man, this first main push of the day, you know, the real doing part of the day, that's behind me. Now we got a different kind of sunset into the rest of the night. And it's nice to have that line of demarcation. And it's helpful because, you know, you'll accumulate a lot of different stuff at work. The workout will help. But, you know, I remember just a couple nights ago, I went through work day. Did my workout, came back, just checked to see if there was anything else that came up in work. And sure as shit, something did. Big kind of blunder that the team made. And I was kind of dealing with that. I get home at that point and I'm just still like a ball of stress and anger and thinking about all these things that have come up, and how could I miss this? I was blah, blah, blah. And taking that time to like let that go before I start pouring that out on Whitney and the people I love and the people around me. So combination of, a little bit of wine. I brought out my flute. You know, I played some music through there, got myself out of my head, hit the drums a little bit, played the didge a little bit. And then all of a sudden I was reset. And it was a different mode, you know, and when you're in that different mode, then you can really connect with those around you and connect with yourself and kind of reset from that big work and go part of the day.
Yeah. When I was talking to Anahata about this de-weeding, we take shit out. You know, we broke down the Native American wheel, and in the West is the fall. They want to remove shit that no longer serves us. And obviously that's looked at as one of the 4 seasons, but if we take that into our day on a daily practice, we can really use that sunset time, that transition from work to going home, to say, all right, let me think about the shit that went wrong today now. So I'm not lying in bed awake with it still there because I've distracted myself in all that in between time until I hit the sheets where now I'm alone with myself.
Right.
Now it's going to come up.
Right.
And if I can remove it then, it's going to be a much more enjoyable experience with the people that I'm around. Or if I'm alone, a much more enjoyable experience with myself. And I've let that go before I go to sleep. That'll improve my sleep.
Even before you bring it to dinner. Because you know when you're aggravated and you're eating, you're just kind of rushing through it. You're not really thinking about the food. You're not enjoying
Cursing
it.
while you're cooking.
Yeah, it's like, and then the people around you who've been a lot of times waiting to see you all day. You know, for you, it's, you know, little Bear and Natasha waiting at home. Like if you brought all that shit from a hard day at work back home and they're like, hey, Dad's home. And you're like, "Ugh," you know, and you can't work through that, then you're really never going to get to connect with the people that you love until you create some vacation where you try and let it all go by just getting hammered and like trying to relax for a minute. But then the stress just mounts and the unhealth and dis-ease of life will start to mount again. And so, yeah, it's important to pay attention to the transition times, the commute to work, and then the transition time between your work day and your workout, and then into dinner and sex and connection, which is what we're talking about next.
Fuck yeah. Let's dive into that. Eat dinner like a king.
Like a king. So we worked out. So we've been kind of shitting on carbs for a while, but that's not the point. The point is there's time for carbs, and now's probably the time. I mean, having a more keto approach where you're eliminating carbs, that's a fine choice too. But if you like bread, if you like some grains, if you don't want to go all the way, then this is the right time because you've depleted the glycogen in your system from your workout. Maybe the wine has built it back up a little bit, but you still have some room for that lump of sourdough with grass-fed butter, or whatever kind of, quinoa.
A nice hot yam with a little fucking honey and butter.
Whatever that is, now is going to be a better time to do it. So that's part of the feast approach. We have some recipes in there with some quinoa pasta, and I just made that the other day. It's fucking awesome with chicken and garlic and spinach but the other thing I wanted to focus on there too is eating foods that boost dietary nitrate levels. And that's for what's coming next.
Pump it.
To get pumped.
Everywhere. I'm coming everywhere. I'm coming on stage. I'm coming in the gym. I'm coming on the beach when I run with my shirt off.
Yeah.
Well, we want to come a lot. So we got more, better sex.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why we eat these foods with dietary nitrates. So we got red wine is one of them. So you've already started that. And nitrates turn into nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is like the gas. It's like the gas valve on the capillaries that either opens up the capillaries
from
our blood
penis
flow
instead of capillaries.
I think they either opens up. Well, it is. They are there for sure. So it's either gas or it's less nitric oxide is breaks. And we want to hit the gas because we want full expansion of all of our capable parts, right? And that's what's going to allow sex to be more pleasurable. It's going to allow your sexual performance to boost. It's going to allow all those things. Even happiness in general is, linked to nitric oxide as well. So red wine, dark chocolate, pumpkin seeds, beets, arugula, Swiss chard, all of these things are going to boost these nitric oxide levels. And that's going to be huge for, bedroom performance.
Yeah. Which doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter what you like. That's an important factor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's, I mean, if you look at the things we get to do in life, dinner and into sex, these should be two of the favorite, actually, all three of these things. All right. Altering your consciousness, playing a musical instrument, eating a great meal, having sex, like you got to enjoy that shit. If you're looking at how good and how awesome life is, and you're not doing any of those things, well, you're missing out. Like those things are a huge part of the enjoyment of life. It's the sensuality, it's the physical love we get to experience. So yeah, I mean, you can obviously do it by yourself, and that's fine as well. And we've all had periods where we've had long stretches where that's all we were
3
doing.
3 years at ASU. Yeah. 3 years. The longest dry spell.
And that was, if we're probably being honest, the longest dry spell, that was not because of your body or because of your looks. That's because of your head.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And that's what we talk about in the book too. Like the ego and all of the performance anxiety and all the pressure that we put on. I was in the same boat. All of that stuff that we do, all the things that we've made sex like a measure of your manhood, like that just fucks it up. You know, sex is just an exploration between two people, and it starts the moment you smile at somebody, the moment you touch them, the moment you kiss them, you know, how you use your mouth, not just for oral sex, but how you communicate. Like sex is the whole experience. You know, it's the back scratch at the end of it. It's how you provide the washcloth, you know, if you're not trying to impregnate your lover.
Wash
like
yourself.
everything is the sex. It's not just that act of penetration that we put so much emphasis on. Like the whole thing is sex. And when you look at it in that broader perspective, then you can really start to enjoy it and just fucking take the pressure off. Like sex doesn't make who you are. Sex is just what you do, you know?
Yeah. So much of that, this part of the book really goes into play.
Yeah.
And we think of like, oh, what does he mean when he says we should play more? And so many people, so many smart people who figure out this right and correct balance in life always talk about play. Like it's something we do as kids and we don't really fill that need as adults. Or we think that I'm going to bust my ass all week and then I'll play on the weekend by getting shit-faced. Or I'm going to work this shitty job my whole life and I'll play when I retire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but as we build...
Or I'm going to live this shitty life and I'll play in heaven.
Yes. Yeah, that's the ultimate.
That's the ultimate
right?
one, right?
The fucking, the best martyr. I'm going to fucking do the most sacrifice and the least enjoyment until the very end. But yeah, as we...
I love that. Someone mentioned something to me that there's like this, you know, parable that of someone who is doing that, just waiting their whole life for that moment to come to heaven. And then they reach there and God looks at them and asks, so how was heaven? And they go, oh, fuck.
And immediately they lose their erection.
Yeah, like, damn it. I was already there.
There's a lot more than 40 virgins.
Yeah.
Down on Earth.
Yeah,
There's way more than 40 virgins.
And who cares if they're virgins?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like it's so much to experience, like all the physical love available in the world. And like, we're in the kingdom of heaven if we so choose it. Like, we've both put ourselves in hell because of our mind getting in the way of our sexuality, you know, like, and that's because as young men and this idea of the measure of the man being our performance, and both of us are super performance crazed people whose, you know, ego got way ahead of our spirituality, you know, as young men. So we couldn't keep that in balance. And we just basically ruined a couple really good years of having sex. Prime years. So yeah, that's one of the pitfalls that we can fall. And I really try to shepherd my younger self or Kyle's younger self or whoever's might be reading this through some of those dangers in this chapter. And then layer on a couple interesting things like the power exchange dynamics, which increase flow state and transient hypofrontality, and you know, really take this sexual experience to another level, and talk about those things as well. But it's really all about like getting back to what this animal does. Like let's get back to the basics. All right, what we eat, how we move, how we drink, how we fuck. Like, okay, let's get that shit right at the bare minimum, you know, and then everything starts to get really fun again.
Oh yeah. We follow up sex with turn off, tune in.
Yeah. There's got to be a time where we shut our phones off. Like I'm not great at it, you know, but I'm trying to get better, and it feels damn good when I do. You know, when I turn on airplane mode and I hit the biomat, and I'd like yesterday, I take the snooze, so I go for a walk on the hill, and even though my phone, I actually used my phone to record it, but it was in airplane mode, so I wasn't getting distracted. Like if that poem download came and I got a text from somebody, you know, I answered it right then. Bye-bye. See you later. See you later. He gone. You know, that shit ain't coming back either. You know, it's like taking the time to just shut down, unplug, and then I have a journaling practice to help kind of prepare you for the next part of the day, which is, well, prepare you for tomorrow. And that's writing your mission, your big why up on top, and then your 3 objectives for the following day. So you, at that point, you really have nothing left to think about. Like you've at the point that you close your journal, it's just 1 page on a Moleskine, your mission at the top of the page, your 3 objectives for the following day. Get that down on paper. Know that that's why you're doing it, and that's what you have to do. Close that Moleskine up, and you are fucking off duty. You don't, emails can't reach you, texts can't reach you. People can wait. They can wait. You know, like you don't have to please them anymore at that point. This is about you. This is about the loved ones that you're with. and that should have already started with the dinner and the sex. But this is a point where, take that last check, make sure everything in your life is good. There's no fire, and then just shut the whole thing fucking down. And if you can do it earlier, great, more power to you. But shut it down, set your objectives for the next day, and you're done. You're done. So take your time to enjoy yourself, play some, non-video games, maybe watch your favorite show, hang out, talk, discuss. You can write, you can read, but you're off duty. This is your time.
Hell yeah. And we circle back to sleep, which we tackled quite a bit in the nap phase.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not falling asleep with the fucking TV on that shouldn't be in your room in the first place.
Yeah.
Or the laptop with the Wi-Fi buzzing right by your head.
And a lot of that is based on fear, right? Like a lot of people leave the TV on because they're scared of the dark. They're scared of the quiet. And I really highly recommend you get to the bottom of that. Whether it's you don't feel safe in your house, well, maybe you need a better alarm system, or you need to find ways that you feel more safe, or just work with the fear itself. Like
yes, be with yourself alone so you're comfortable in your own skin and you can see where fear, anxiety, and stress is coming from.
Yeah. And, look, it may be different. It may be different for everybody. Like I do like having, if I'm at my house and I'm there, I like having a gun nearby, and that's just something that for me, I'm more comfortable with. And I've trained a lot of hours with that. And I feel like, all right, my doors are locked. My alarm's on. I got my gun, maybe I've put a little sage in the room for other reasons. And then fucking, I'm safe. This is my sanctuary right now.
Do you oil your gun with Palo Santo?
I do when I go hunting, actually. I actually do.
Oh, shit.
I actually do smudge my gun and smudge the bullets and say some prayers for a swift kill of the animal. But so close. But it's funny, I think safety and security is a big one. Like when I'm gone, Whit sleeps like shit at the house. And that's because she doesn't really feel safe.
It's also because people have actual tattoos of her image on their body.
That is true. That's true. If you're listening, it's cool, man. Just,
it's cool. We're
chill.
Friends. Yeah. We're friends. We're all good.
Yeah. Yeah. And they talk, there's another way, usually like the most secure position. I think it's also hardwired. Like sleep is the time where humans used to get ambushed the most, either by another neighboring tribe or somebody.
Nocturnal animal.
Yeah. If still you can't get comfortable, the most secure position that they say that you can be in, like to wire that into your body, is going to be sleeping on your side with your dominant arm up, right? So if you're kind of feeling a little uneasy, sleep on your side with the dominant arm up, because that triggers the body like, okay, I'm the most prepared. So if something comes, I could like block an attack. I could push ninja skills. Show off your very particular set of skills. It's funny though, I was just listening to my podcast with Tim Kennedy I did recently, and he goes to sleep exactly the opposite. He just fantasizes about somebody breaking in. He's got that, I wish they would. It's like, please let tonight be the night that the terrorists come. I hope he's got like multiple like traps and fucking guns stationed in certain spots. He knows his kill zone. He knows his like last resort where like his body lays before his family goes.
He might think about that pre-sex also to get him going. Like that might be the ritual to get his dick hard.
I was cracking up at that. That was one of my favorite podcasts. If you guys want to go shop over to the Aubrey Marcus podcast and listen to it. The other favorite part with Tim is I was talking about, there's that show To Catch a Predator, and he does like a lot of that stuff too, but it's just in the surveillance side. So we talked about him. He's doing a lot of TV shows now. I was like, what if there's a show and it's called Surprise Motherfucker? And the show Surprise Motherfucker is like To Catch a Predator, except you're stationed in the house, right? And if the predator actually comes, you watch from the closet. And then at that point, if they start being a dirtbag, surprise, motherfucker! And then the cameras turn down.
Snatch the condoms out of his hand.
And it's just fucking a mad Tim Kennedy to deal with.
The 13-year-old girl runs off to safety.
Yeah, surprise! And then if he's cool, then maybe he like Tim just sits there and fucking munches on a Warrior bar or whatever. And all else good.
So how do we bring this all home? Final chapter.
So one of the big things about this final chapter, which is all about bringing it home and actually putting it into work, is if you're going to make these radical changes, you have to feel like you deserve to change. Like if you don't feel like you deserve to change, if you don't feel like you deserve to be happy, you deserve to be healthy because you're punishing yourself for some past failures, or you don't think you're worth it, or you're worthless, or you haven't been, all of these different stories that we have from our past self and the decisions we made, then you're not going to change. You're not going to do it. You're going to subconsciously find ways to not do these things. Maybe you'll try them once and it'll work, but you won't like that it worked because you'll feel like you deserve not the good, but the bad. You'll try to balance out your own equilibrium by punishing yourself and keeping yourself in a state of suffering. And I think that's something that people really overlook. Like, can you really look in the mirror and say, I deserve to be fucking happy? I deserve for things to go right. I deserve to feel great. I deserve to have the purpose, my purpose, the job of my dreams. I deserve to have the lover that I want. I deserve all of these things, and not because I've done something for it. I deserve all that just because I am, just because I'm alive, just because I'm a person, I'm a human. And whatever stuff I've done in the past, at any point, we can decide that that is the past you and this is the new you. You can choose to forgive yourself for that. And I think that's a real key practice. And I talk about the practice of Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian kahuna practice of radical forgiveness, like getting to a zero state. And you tell yourself, I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, forgive me. And you just fucking keep telling yourself that over and over until you really believe it. Until you really believe at that point you're a new person. And at that point, all of these changes you're going to find a lot easier to make because you're going to feel like, oh, I deserve it. And that's probably one of the most important things that I could bring home from my own mindset and my own philosophical understanding, which I try to weave through the whole book. But chapter 16 is that in its purest form. Like, how do we get to a state where we're ready to be a different person?
Hell yeah, brother.
Yep.
Nailed it.
Yeah, it's a fucking, and it's a fun read too. It's me.
Yeah.
The book is me. This isn't, I didn't outsource this shit. I had some help from a brilliant writer, editor, Niels Parker, but I rewrote it personally, wrote it, 100,000 word outline, and then rewrote it 6-7 times, like, to make sure everything is in line. And he just helped with the structure and some of the way that it wove through. But this book is me. There's jokes, there's admissions, there's honesty, there's the whole thing. It's not like a dry guidebook. This isn't an encyclopedia. This is a story about how anybody can live a great day. And it has stories from other great performers and people I know and some people I don't know, like Marcus Aurelius and Tony Robbins. I don't know them personally, but they're woven in there. And I think people are really going to dig it.
Yeah, they're going to love it. I do.
Yeah. And the audio version is going to be dope too. That was recorded that myself. So
5 of the hardest days of work you've ever put together.
Unreal, man. Unreal. The amount of focus that it took to just read for 7.5 hours straight, and really, really know. It helped that I wrote it. That helped a lot, but obviously I don't remember everywhere I was going with every sentence. So like reading ahead and then reading and then really expressing the truth of what I was writing through my voice without any preparation, because you can't read the page ahead of time and then say it. There's not enough time for that. We're paying for the recording studio.
Mr. Marcus, can you reread that? Sounds like you're floating off in space.
Yeah, exactly. They would call me out for stomach gurgles. That was the thing that was really frustrating. Like before lunch, be like, I heard a little stomach in there. Can we do that again? I was like, you heard a little stomach in there? Like, what do you mean? But it turned out awesome. So, you can get that on Audible. You can pre-order it now too.
Awesome, brother. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, definitely. If you're interested in the book, check out ownthedaybook.com. And there's a bunch of perks if you buy book bundles, anything from hanging out with me to the video companion to all kinds of cool shit. If you wanted to get more than one book and give it off to friends and, store this up as birthday and Christmas presents or however you want to do it. And yeah, just go to ownthedaybook.com, check that out. And Aubrey Marcus podcasts and at Aubrey Marcus.
Fuck yeah, brother.
Fuck yeah.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, man. Let's eat that fucking mushroom burger.
Let's do it.